Yes. Gotta keep things exciting. So you have to bring it into the house, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice.
Yeah. Having you back here.
Okay.
Kelly, are we all set?
Yeah, we got everybody.
Yeah. Great. All right, we all ready to go? All right.
Ready?
Well, hello and welcome to the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority meeting at Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. Appreciate everyone making their way here. Laura, can you please do a roll call?
Can.
Thank you.
Michael Bartelme.
Here.
Steve Brummer. Alex Deek. Here. Milton Mahoney. Tyler Kinley.
Present.
Jessica Leetop. Here. Jonathan Massey. Darren McKinnon.
Present.
Mike Micklon.
Here.
Theresa Nichols. Here. And Danielle Vaughn.
Here.
We have a forum.
Thank you. Moving right ahead, I need a motion to approve the board meeting agenda.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the approval of the board meeting agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Public comment. If anyone from the public would wish to speak, you have 4 minutes each. You have Edfield Meddy. Time is yours.
Yep. Hi, my name is Ed Vilmetti. I live in the 4th Ward and I work downtown. I work in Tile, just 111 South Main, 3rd floor. If anyone wants a tour, just let me know. It's a co-working space. The comment I have today is, well, welcome to spring and summer and winter, sort of all in one measure. And welcome to construction on Main Street. And as part of construction on Main Street, I find myself walking or bicycling down the alleys next to Main Street much more regularly. When Main Street's blocked off, it's a convenient way through. When the times that I'm going, there's not typically lots of traffic there, so it's a straight shot. You're not fighting Main Street traffic on your bicycle, all that other good stuff. So I'm thinking of the alleys as partly a transportation thing. But alleys are also a working alley with trash cans and grease collectors and other sorts of utilitarian, industrial, non-industrial, like restaurant-oriented uses. And over the span of days, weeks, months, maybe years between a thorough scrubbing and cleaning, it gets kind of nasty. Smelly a little bit, although the temperature keeping down means it's not quite as smelly. But there's the usual sort of litter of stuff in the alley because it's an alley. And there's also spots that look like they haven't been deep cleaned since forever. And especially when there's a grease thing there, you get stuff that looks like it would attract vermin if the vermin had enough time for there. It's not, I'm not complaining, like these are alleys, right? They're working spots. But what I'm wondering from the DDA perspective is, what's the mutually understood shared responsibility for maintaining these alleys, right? They're public ways, so I would expect if there's a vehicle of the right size, that a public street sweeper would go down it once every days, weeks, months, just like the city sweeps the streets, but it's part of the DDA, so maybe that's not a right thing. If you see trash in the alley, like, that's sufficiently nasty as to require like someone else's attention, like, who do you tell that to? Do you tell it to Maura? Do you tell it to the DDA? To the, like, who, like, I don't even know who that person is, or organization or body is. So I guess the question is, like, what's the shared responsibility for the alleys, and, you know, can we do a better job? And does it cost a huge amount to do it? And if it costs a huge amount to do it, like, what's the budget cycle that gets that money spent at the right pace? Because I know that money gets spent at an annual pace, even if problems show up on a daily basis. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, please.
I'd like to say something in response to that. I'm Carolyn Arcure. I live above Hyperion Coffee. I live on the alley between 111 and 113, between Hyperion and the West Side Bookshop. Mr. Dehoney has been like really receptive to picking up the trash, the city picking up the trash more often, which has been grateful, and we are grateful, you know. However, everything that Mr. Vometti just said is true. I clean our alley. My husband cleans our alley. We're out there like at least once a day. We pick up the trash. We wash down. And our alley is probably the most beautiful alley in the downtown. But it takes that kind of constant attention because they're alleys. And so I don't know the answer to it. It would help if, like, all the people who get things in boxes broke down the boxes, then the dumpsters wouldn't get, I know that's an ongoing thing. But it's a communal responsibility, and I don't know how then, you know, when things are owned communally, nobody really takes responsibility. When I'm out there picking stuff up, usually somebody stops and says, hey, you missed something up on Main Street. And so that's just something.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving forward to reports from city boards and commissions. No report this month. I believe that the meeting was canceled. Correct. So we'll look forward to next month's report from city boards and commissions. Executive director report.
I just have a couple of things. First, I wanted to let the board and the public know that I spent yesterday in Lansing accepting an award on behalf of the DDA. The League of Michigan Bicyclists awarded the DDA an Outstanding Infrastructure Award. So it was really nice to be there at the Capitol accepting this award, and I'm just going to read what was read at the ceremony. The Ann Arbor DDA won for the most improved bicycle-friendly infrastructure in the past year by carefully listening to cyclist feedback and pushing for and implementing two-way protected bikeways in the downtown area. These improvements completed at least 2 miles of pathways which allow cyclists to ride safely in the now better connected areas of Ann Arbor. When asked, the DDA added bollards in specific areas of concern, helped purchase the appropriate snow removal equipment to accommodate the bollards, and implemented their own signage when needed. Thanks to this hard work, the Ann Arbor DDA is proving itself a friend to cyclists. So we're really proud of that. The physical awards, they had a little glitch, so they weren't ready, so that's being sent, so I have nothing to hold. I also want to point out that at your place, you're going to see a draft of a People-Friendly Streets outcome report. This is something that, an outcomes report is something that we have wanted to do for a very long time. We have not had the staff capacity to actually talk about all of the good work that we do. But now with our new planning specialist, Shelby Meestor, and huge credit to Shelby for putting together this really incredible report. It will go, the final draft will the final edition will be done next week. Again, this is a draft, but we wanted to give you a sneak peek before it was sent to council, other boards and commissions, and out to certain members of the public. So please take a look at it when you have time.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, DDA members' communications. Any communications from our DDA board?
Can I ask more question?
Yes.
Is there a way, so 2 questions. One is, I've been trying to think of more ways to better advertise advertise our wins, if you will. So I don't know if there was like a press release or a little announcement about the Bicyclist Award that I can share on Twitter and on LinkedIn and things like that.
We can do that. Since we got the award yesterday, we weren't allowed to talk about
Yeah.
it.
For sure.
But yes, and you'll notice on the back of that outcomes report, we have listed our awards, and one of the things that we're working on internally, in addition to getting this report out in its full form to commissions and council, we're going to take pieces of it to throw out on social media. We're going to get creative and chop it up and do bite-sized pieces that people would be interested in and would catch people's eyes. So
Great. That was my next question, is can I get a PDF of this to share?
Oh, yeah.
And the Cahoots channel and things like that.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, and we continue to brainstorm, like we need to continue to think of creative ways to get this out there. And we have a pretty good connection now with WBW and Common Cycle, and all of those people have been super generous about helping us share information. And one other thing I should point out, the award that we received yesterday, one of the reasons I felt really proud about that award is because we were nominated by a business in Carytown. So it meant a lot to us that somebody from the business community actually nominated us.
Yeah, for sure.
Which business was it?
Urban Cargo Riders, Kim and Jim Summers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Maura. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the April minutes?
So,
Second.
Got that, Kelly?
That was nothing.
Unsuccessfully,
I was unsuccessful.
yeah, I moved.
Okay. Just seconded.
Discussion?
We could try.
Okay, we sorted everything out. All those in favor of the approval of the April minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Subcommittee reports, Mr. Bartholomew.
Yes, we had a pretty robust finance committee. We have several resolutions for your attention. I would like to move forward the following resolution and ask for a second. And that would be the resolution put forward an amendment to the fiscal year 2023 budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Just as a summary, this is good news. The FY23 parking revenues are anticipated to be higher than budgeted by fiscal year end. And the directly related expenditures, 20% revenue share to city and the credit card fees we incur for processing will also increase, requiring a budget amendment. The committee recommends approving the resolution, putting forward this budget amendment to City Council. And once it is approved by City Council, the amendment will be brought back to the board for final authorization. A little color, we do this fairly annually based on the actual revenues from the parking. This is good news. We're over budget, which means we need to share more money with the city, and we also have an increase in our processing fees. No.
It's basically something we have to do if we have more income than expected.
Yeah, I remember.
Yep.
Any questions or discussion about this? Excellent. Chair?
All right. All those in favor of, let me read it correctly. All those in favor of the resolution put forward an amendment to the fiscal year 2023 budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Resolution passes.
Thank you. I would next like to move the following resolution and ask for a second, and that is the resolution to approve interagency agreement for collaborative technology and services.
Second.
Thank you, Tyler. The DDA has been working with the city IT regarding transitioning its IT services to the city. At this time, we are using a third-party vendor for our IT services, which is not integrated with the city's IT, which causes us some organizational efficiency issues. There is a minimal cost variance between the city and the current DDA IT vendor. The benefits include access to needed software, enhanced security protocols, and our dollars remain in Ann Arbor, going to the city rather than a national third-party vendor. The agreement has been reviewed by the city's and DDA's attorney, and the Finance Committee recommends approving the resolution for an interagency agreement for collaborative technology and services to the board. Any questions about this? Discussion?
only that I have is when you look at it, there's schedule number and effective date that are highlighted in yellow on the rest, on certain aspects in the packet. I just want to make sure I understand the aspects correctly.
Yeah, yep, we will be working out with the city, if you should all approve this, the finalized date of when we'll make the switch. I mean, there are logistical things that have to be worked out that we couldn't put in a.
I just want to understand what they were.
Yep.
Cool.
And is this red line from the attorney? The added section?
That was a suggested section, that city legal was looking at.
So, from my understanding, the resolution provides some leeway for an effective start date and some minor contractual terms to be worked out, but the bulk of the cost as well as
Cost is
everything else is.
concrete.
So,
Yeah, those aspects.
yep,
Yep.
I believe we're okay to move forward with the vote.
Yeah, just wanted to understand
I
it.
have a question.
Yeah, okay.
Is this just for basically this office? It's not going to affect the parking garages, or is it also cover?
Correct, just this office.
Just this office?
This has been under discussion for a while.
For a very, very, very long time. Since when I was interim back in 2020,
That's great.
we started this discussion.
Okay, great. It's nice to see this come up to it.
That's right, that's right. Okay, we're all reading through, we be comfortable with that? Okay, all those in favor of the interagency agreement for collaborative technology, that's not, is that the name of the resolution? That's the resolution?
That's the resolution.
All those in favor of the resolution for the interagency agreement for collaborative technology and services, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Resolution passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other meat of our finance committee meeting was an excellent presentation by Sarah. I'm sure we'll be more than happy to answer any in-depth questions we have on this. I do want to say a copy of the presentation went to everybody and was included in your board packet, so it's there for your review. To summarize, staff presented an overview of the DDA's post-pandemic financial status and planning and project timelines for both the TIF and parking systems. On the TIF side, the 3.5% cap means the capital activities of the organization are effectively kneecapped. To keep our fund balance at a healthy level, we will need to make some tough decisions about spending in outlying years. The TIF system is currently in a planning phase with major studies queuing up. The DDA is leading an energy utility study and a circulation study. In addition, the city is updating its comprehensive plan and studying the benefits of trunk line ownership. These studies will help set the downtown vision and identify related capital needs before the next DDA capital project kicks off in 2026. Overall, the DDA will control costs to work within restrictions, the result being that investment in downtown will be limited. The parking system has suffered some significant revenue losses. Current revenues are at 73% of pre-pandemic projection levels. FY23 is the third year in which we have deferred necessary capital maintenance of the parking structures, and fund balances are in decline. Staff is currently working on 3 studies: a curbside management study, an updated 20-year capital maintenance plan, and a parking rate study. These 3 studies will inform a plan for addressing the maintenance deferrals, as well as maintaining adequate fund balance levels in outlying years. Although the challenges facing both systems are different, in both cases, staff are working to identify strategies and design processes that will direct board decisions in the future. So it's quite a bit of update there before I move on to the next bit. I think the takeaway is that these studies that we're undertaking now in conjunction with the city's new master plan will inform kind of the next steps that we need to take and what our options are. Obviously, if nothing changes with our revenues, we're going to be in a difficult position to continue to invest in capital projects in downtown. But we'll have more information. You can expect to see a lot more of that coming from staff in the next year as these studies work their ways to a close and we have more information about what we need to do and how we need to go about it.
What's the horizon for all of those studies? Do we know?
Everything's on a little bit of a different timeline, but I would say between 12 and 18 months. everything, all of those studies should be completed. Things like curbside management plan and the parking rate study, we should start to see results this summer. So yeah, so I feel like we're kind of in a hold pattern right now for this next year.
And I believe we had a really nice slide at the presentation that showed the timing of the study and when they were concluding and along with the budget cycle.
Yes,
So
so
that information is in the presentation as well.
Yep, and I can resend the slides that have that timing if that's helpful. So-
Probably good to resend it. I think having this overview is really helpful to sort of prime the thinking, and then having the presentations like, oh, it fleshes it out with a lot more detail.
Yeah, I'll send that out.
Appreciate that.
We also, at this committee, and Tyler will be sharing a little more in the executive committee update, we also discussed how a potential shift in our committee structure could facilitate better communication across the organization, as well as add efficiency. Information about that will be coming to the board in the next month. The next finance committee is scheduled for Thursday, May 25th at 9 a.m. Everybody is welcome.
Encouraged. Thank you, Micah. Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Operations Committee, please.
Okay. We have two resolutions from the Operations Committee. The first one I'd like to move is providing a grant for the Go Pass and Get Downtown program. Looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Get Downtown program was co-created by the DDA in 1999 as a partnership between the DDA and the AAATA and the City of Ann Arbor. The Get Downtown program provides commuting assistance to downtown employees, including distribution of the Go Pass. DDA has provided funding for the Go Pass and the Get Downtown program since 2001, and the Operations Committee recommends approval of funding requests for FY24 of $605,914. Very specific, including not to exceed amounts for promotion and marketing for the fixed rate fares, Go Pass, and the flat amount for non-fixed route discounts outlined in the resolution in the packet. Any questions?
No questions. I'll just say I know this is an important program for a lot of employees at downtown businesses. I think we had about 3,000 or so last year, so great program.
Question about this, have we been seeing increased utilization of the Go Pass or decrease post-pandemic as things start to? I mean, we've seen the increase in transportation downtown and bike paths downtown as we get further out post-pandemic.
My memory serves, it has increased in the past 3 years. It dropped.
Of course, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, are we seeing recovery?
It has built back consistently.
We're slowly seeing recovery, and
Lillian's here.
Lillian's here, where's Lillian? She can speak to it much better than I can.
I didn't know if you wanted exactly kind of what Tyler said. It did drop in 2020 and has kind of been rebuilding each month and quarter since, both in the number of folks who are utilizing it and how often they are riding.
Nice.
Okay, there's upticks.
I love the Go Pass. I was HR for a business downtown, and it was crucial to employees and a huge factor for people joining the team versus other downtown businesses who weren't supporting the program.
Great. That's great to hear. Okay, we all feel pretty comfortable here. All those in favor of the resolution to provide a grant to fund the Go Pass and the Get Downtown program for fiscal year 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Resolution passes.
Okay, we have another resolution, essentially codifying a practice that's been ongoing related to collections for past due accounts associated with parking passes. So the resolution is also in your packet. Can I get a second on this?
Second.
Thank you. The DDA is responsible for establishing policies regarding the parking system and the collection policy, including the packet, will formalize this process under which the parking operator bills and collects parking revenue and handles past due accounts. Policy aligns with the parking industry best practice, and the committee recommends approval of the parking accounts receivable collection policy. So, like I said before, this kind of codifies what has been happening already, and one anecdote that was shared at the meeting is that one significant change from the pandemic is that it used to be the passes were mostly held by organizations. Businesses would have dozens of passes that they would provide for employees. Post-pandemic, we're seeing more individuals hold passes themselves, and there's a thought that maybe a lot of these folks are also students, and then they tend to leave town and forget that they have a pass. And so we're seeing an increase in passes that the accounts aren't being kept current, so it's creating a little more work for the back office folks trying to figure out why these passes are out and they're not getting paid for.
So do we have a sense of like number of accounts or the dollars that are affected by this?
I think Jacob BZI.
So traditionally, it has not been very high at all. This is what we're doing now. Basically, the areas that we're tightening it up is deactivating their permits a little sooner, because that's the mechanism when they get to the gate and the gate does not go up. That reminds them that they have a bill to pay. We also are shifting the date where we send the invoices and make them due into the prior month. So again, just kind of tightening it up. It's not a whole lot, and that's information that we usually can share with you at the end of the fiscal year. And I will say that PCI staff does a really good job of working with people to set up payment plans or, to understand situations, so.
I don't necessarily want to change anything at the table because I know a lot of work has gone into this. I wonder if what we're seeing is mostly students who are just abandoning, accounts that they forget. I just wonder about the wisdom of collections, because it seems like a rough way to send them off into the world.
Yeah, and we certainly are not looking to ruin anybody's credit, and I think it's been years since we've actually turned people over to collections. I do think when you see that language in an agreement that you sign, maybe it kind of elevates the seriousness of having to treat it just like you would any of your other bills. But we heard from the committee affirming that's not what we're looking to do. But I think it's important on a technical language component to have it in.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems like the policy doesn't reflect that aggressive approach to collections on students. It's very clear.
And like you said, cutting it off at the gate does a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I think I'm a little bit naive on how this works. So people don't prepay for the month, they are billed after they're given access?
So right now, invoices go out at the end of, let's say, May for June parking, and the payments are due by the 7th of June. So then we weren't deactivating until the end of June when it's already past due. What we'll do now is PCI will invoice, I think we said like around the 15th of the month. They'll be due by the end of that month for that next month. People will get, a grace period before their card is deactivated. But yes, people are basically prepaying for their next month of parking.
Previously, they were allowed to use that
Yeah, that's what I was-
parking
yeah.
while their invoice was still delinquent.
So hopefully this
we're
also
moving
prevents
back.
them going into collections too, because they're not
Yeah.
getting in debt with it. Yeah, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I was making out.
They'll have maybe a week or
Yeah,
two of
yeah,
use
yeah, yeah.
before they're, can't use it anymore, I owe for the month.
Cool, thank you.
And it's not 100% individuals, there's still a lot of organizations that pay, so you have an accounting department that has to process a payment, so they don't want it auto-charging a corporate credit card, they want to process it through their accounts payable department, and so thus the couple days after the first of the month when the check
Yeah.
is due, if they're
I
running
managed our
check.
5th Street and our Washington Street passes, but I couldn't remember how, because it's not my money, it's the company's money, so I don't remember how much I'm paying for.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Feel comfortable moving forward? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution to approve a parking account receivable collection policy, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion and resolution passes.
Okay, we also received a quarterly revenue report on the parking system, and that is also included in the packet. And as discussed and voted in the Finance Committee report, revenues are projected to be higher than budgeted, but the fiscal year end and the budget amendment will be forwarded to the City Council for review and approval. Any questions on the quarterly revenue report?
I don't think it was included in
Yeah,
the
I think we're
package,
missing-
FYI.
I put it in the electronic, but not here. so
Okay.
because of the business.
It's included in the electronic
It is
packet
here.
that you received in your email.
It's very, very environmentally friendly.
Correct.
So that's good.
Update on the parking garage fencing. The materials have been ordered and work will begin next month. And the last item is the parking system restoration. And that's the annual repair program on primarily structural components of the garages. Construction and documents are being prepared currently by Fishbeck. The RFP will be released later this month. And the contracts will be coming to approval for next June's operation and July board meetings. And the May Operations Committee meeting is canceled, and our next meeting will be June 28th. And we will look at parking system proposals.
All right. Thanks, Darren. We went through a lot here today. Moving to the Capital Improvements Committee. Deke.
Thanks, Tyler. So the first thing, I have a resolution to approve an agreement with Wade Trim Associates for engineering and as-needed services that I'd like to move. If I could please have a second. Thanks, Jess. So just a little summary on this. DDA initiatives require professional services, including civil engineering, transportation engineering, and as-needed support. And last year we shifted to an annual contract review for approval of this. And the committee recommends approval of this resolution. This is an essential and standard contract. And so this resolution to approve the Wade Trim Services as needed contract starts on page 27 if you want to take a look at it. Please let me know if you have any questions.
The as-needed services are, so on this billing, this is like an allowance, and they're billed on
Yeah.
as-used basis.
Exactly,
So we
not
may,
to exceed
not to
150.
exceed. If we don't need that $150,000 worth of services, we'll have a surplus
Exactly.
on that contract.
That's right, and I think there was a surplus last year. Is that right? No? Can we talk about that?
Yep, yes, we have a little bit remaining
Yeah.
on last year's contract, so we'll continue to spend that down before we begin using this new contract. We have some things that are kind of mid-work, and it's just not something we want to risk running out of money for.
Did you think if you were hiding behind somebody that I wouldn't see you? I didn't see you until you got up. Yeah.
All right, feel comfortable? All right, all those in favor of the resolution to approve an agreement with Wade Trim Associates, Inc. for engineering and as-needed services, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Resolution passes.
Okay, and then kind of a lot of updates today, but the first thing, project update, so 4th Avenue design update. 4th Avenue is a collaborative cost share project with city engineering and the AAA. The design team provided an overview of the project and the 2021 concept plan, as well as the remaining schedule. And staff and consultants conducted a public engagement section at the BTC with patrons, and the final layout and project elements will be determined through the remainder of the design process. That's 4th Street. And then we have a State Street construction update. Concrete work is complete between North University and Liberty. The water main is installed between Liberty and Washington, with testing taking place late this week and early next week. The electrical and stormwater work continues, and overall the project is on schedule, and the contractor's goal is to have the remaining concrete work complete by Art Fair, which I think was your question. Where does it put us with Art Fair? So we're on a good schedule. And then we also, staff provided this really interesting summary and overview of other DDAs in Michigan, and they provided an overview of planned work and reiterated what Micah shared about being kind of in a planning phase. And in relation to this, staff are reaching out to other Michigan DDAs to understand their work, focus, and structure. And it was just really interesting because, and I think our committee was surprised to learn how lean we are in terms of staffing and budgets in comparison, and yet our geographic area is relatively large compared to others with maybe a similar budget or even more staff. So it was very enlightening, so I would encourage you all to take a look at that kind of summary as we start prepping, changing our DDA, what's it called? Development plan. renewal. So it's it was really interesting and should lead to good discussion.
Did they have any points that stood out to you about where they had more headcount or more resources that they?
I don't want to generalize, but in general,
yeah.
everybody's staff, when you think about geographic area and budget, everybody's staff seemed bigger than ours, and yet we accomplished quite a bit.
Okay, I didn't know if they had like
When you looked at Traverse
departments
City
or
and
headcount
Grand
allocated
Rapids,
things, yeah.
so you can think about Grand Rapids just geographically,
Yeah.
way bigger than us, and then Traverse City, I can't remember their thing, but they had a bigger staff than us despite, and so it was really interesting. But those were the two we looked at as comparables.
Quick question on the comps. So did those two DDAs function in the same way that as we do in terms of responsibilities, parking versus capital improvements?
Yeah.
Kind of our main.
Traverse City was more akin to us, I think. Is that right, Amber? They had a formal parking structure. I don't think Grand Rapids had a contract for parking systems. I can't remember, but yeah, you guys, it was very comprehensive. It was really interesting.
Yeah, so I think two things that really stood out. One is talking to those other DDAs and looking at their budgets. Reinforced TIF is primarily used on capital.
Yeah.
About 70 to 80% of those other organizations, their TIF budget is used on capital projects. The other thing that jumped out to us was the other DDAs have more diversified funding sources. And some of that is because over the years, City Council has limited the funding sources that are available to this DDA. But those are kind of two interesting things we've learned that we'll want to keep talking about.
And one thing that stood out to me as well is our boundary is sort of complete, whereas theirs, it's a lot more piecemeal and it had grown over time and changed, and so they're off. Ours is sort of one contiguous boundary, whereas theirs, it had outgrowth the growing. I don't fully understand exactly how it changes the use of the funds for those different spots, but it was like much more piecemeal.
So yeah.
And you could have opt-in areas. Areas could opt in based on the renewal. So
That's right.
we're looking
Yeah.
at a renewal right now. We haven't done one in a long time. And so part of this renewal is kind of exploring our boundaries and where we would add. But from what I understand with Grand Rapids specifically, areas can opt in or out, or the county can opt in or out of kind of, and so that changes the funding mechanism for a specific area,
Yeah, their
despite it
boundary.
being included in the DDA.
And their boundaries change so often, whereas ours has been so fixed.
Ours has been fixed since the beginning, and ours is the only one that hasn't changed.
I asked you about that when I first called in a year or two ago when I was like, how did you guys determine these lines?
Yeah.
So it's like one of my first questions.
Legitimate questions.
Yeah. One more question. So you said that we've had increase in limiting our revenue sources over the years. Does that fluctuate? Will we ever increase our abilities?
Those are all things that should be looked at. I mean, those
Okay.
the other DDAs and their partner cities have been having those conversations. The outcomes are just different than the outcomes that we've had here. So it'll be an important education tool for all of us for those next round of discussions.
To answer that, those are political decisions.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm getting at,
Yeah,
is we've
they're-
seen,
It's reasonable to think that we'll have a discussion.
Yeah,
That hasn't
exactly.
always been true.
yeah, exactly. That's more what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of this prep work will inform that and have the approach to asking for more funding sources.
Okay, cool, great.
Oh, next meeting, May 17th at 11 a.m.
Thank you. Moving ahead to the Affordable Housing and Economic Development Committee, summary is moot. We did not meet this past month for lack of need. The next meeting is May 10th at 9 a.m. That is with the full partners. So that will be taking place 9 a.m. Wednesday, May 10th. And moving ahead to the Executive Committee, a little more meat on the bone here to report out from the Executive Committee. We'll start with the Executive Director search. We've been working to establish what the path forward would be for the DDA in the Executive Director search. The first thing that we really did was say, what are our options moving forward? And we've identified three main paths that we could choose to go. The first would be mirroring our past search, which would be to put out an RFP and use that to hire an outside search firm. We would pay them to help us run the process. The next option would be we actually go to the city and we utilize their city HR services to do a similar service. They would do a national/international internet search, and we'd utilize them instead of the outside search firm, which we had in the past. And the third would be we hire, and we can just make a decision on our own without going outside to seek a firm and do a massive search. Now, to make that decision, we this month are going to be putting together information. I was going to put together a memo, but as I started to put together a memo talking about our experience in the past, it became a challenge of winnowing down a massive amount of information into something digestible. Also, we wanted to utilize staff's experience here to help provide that information. So this month, we're going to try to provide information on these options. Staff is currently interfacing with city HR to get a better understanding of, should we go that route, what does it look like? We'll provide some information on what our past experience was seeking an outside firm, and we'll also talk a little bit in there about what it would look like to go and just hire ourselves. Our goal is to have a more robust discussion with you having a little bit more information at the June meeting. The notion then would be, come July, we want to make a decision on what path forward we take. This right now is just providing the information. That's what we're looking ahead to do. We don't need decisions yet. More information will be disseminated. Our board has a variety of levels of understanding of how that process went. Some are more new, some are more seasoned. So we're hoping to bring everyone up to speed as much as possible with the past and with what we're looking ahead to do, so that come June, we can have a more robust discussion about what options seem most feasible and most likely for us to move ahead with. That makes sense to everybody?
And part of what you're doing with the options, if I understand, is helping us understand what the board support would be, the expected board support for each of the options.
Exactly. What's the board's involvement within those processes? Is it really hands-on? Is it spread out? And if it's a mixture of a smaller committee, which we did in the past, how does that look with that committee then providing more information and detail to the rest of the board? So, yeah.
Our subsequent steps and how the board interfaces will depend on which process we choose. So come July, we choose our path of process. After that, depending on which way we go, we'll have to empower an advisory committee of board and staff to assist in that and perform certain functions within that search. But we won't know what the needs are until we decide which path we're taking.
Correct.
Do we have a target hire date? And do we have a date when we want this wrapped up?
So those things really make what path we choose will dictate the time.
Of course, but.
So the answer is no.
Okay.
At the moment, but that's something that we can talk about. Go ahead.
And right now, Maura, your agreement for interim is until we hire or until a date?
There was just a resolution passed naming me as interim without any end date, so.
So we decide as part of the process. Last time when we went with an outside firm, as part of the proposal, they suggested a timeline, which provided a basis. It didn't end up being how things worked out for various reasons, a lot because of the pandemic. So yeah, that's one of those things that kind of comes clear as we go. But right now, I don't think it's like July of 2024. We don't have it to that specificity.
Is there like a rolling interest in, I guess this is maybe a city HR question, but like, do we ever just get applications for, executive directors and, things like that? Are people emailing the executive committee about interest in this position just on its own?
I'm receiving no emails of interest, but there are individuals who were a part of the past process.
Yeah.
Who, in seeing the transition from previous executive director moving on, sort of reached out and said, "Hey, if you're looking, I'm still interested."
Okay.
And so we haven't seen individuals just out of the blue throw their name in the ring, but there has been sort of a ping back of like, "Oh, I see that's open
Well, that's
again."
interesting though.
Yeah. Another separate item to discuss is we've been in talks with Mora to look at our committee structure. Right now, you can look at our agenda. If you want to learn about the Finance Committee, it's May 25th. If you want to do operations, it's June 28th. So right now, we are disseminating a lot of complex information at various committees. In order to really understand it, you got to make a lot of time. And we've got an eager board, an active board, and a busy board. And the challenge there is people are busy and it's hard to make all the meetings. There's a lot of committees to attend. We wind up coming to this table at very different levels of understanding of all these issues. And it's challenging at this table to say, I would like a lot more information to feel comfortable making a decision. So we're looking at a change in the committee format that would actually follow the precedent of Traverse City, Grand Rapids, and other DDA boards, having talked to them, that they, instead of having a lot of small meetings separately that over time ends up committing about 10 hours a month, rather condensing them to one work session where all of the board attends, all of the board receives the same amount of information. That can be supplemented with additional meetings that month that can, better illuminate a specific issue or a specific topic or an area of need. But right now, that's what we're looking at doing, because it's solving the problem of a very challenging environment of having to attend so many things just to get up to speed on the issues, and so many issues right now being of a pretty pressing nature. So the notion is, going forward, and we can talk about it, but that's what we've identified as an easier way of actually getting all the board fully informed before coming to this table and having to vote on resolutions. Instead, having a work session, everyone attends, staff prepares, we review it as a group, just review. There's no vote being taken. It's a learning process. There's a lot more dialogue. It's a lot more comfortable to be able to ask those questions and learn and really suss out the information you need in order to make better decisions at this table. So we're looking ahead to do that in July to make that change. If there's opinions that see issues there, let us know.
Sure, I think it's great.
The other part is that it's not, it's something that there's precedent for it. I think we've identified that it can solve a lot of the challenges that we're facing, but it's not like it's permanent either.
Sure.
We don't make this change and then, that's it forever. Go ahead, Mike.
I'd like to point out a couple other things. It's not only a solution for the board, but this is also very much a staff-led initiative. Preparing for all the committees takes a lot of staff time.
Yeah.
We really think this would be a lot more efficient use of everybody's time, both the boards and the staffs, and give us time to be more focused on actually doing the work instead of doing updating. The other part is, what was the other part? We do have some discussion about when this work session would be scheduled within the month. Obviously, we have the board meeting the first Wednesday of the month. When is ideal, both at a board timing, respecting everyone's schedule, but also when in the month the information is best given to us, so we're best prepared for the meeting. So we've got a little bit of discussion about the logistics of this, which we're trying to tease out over the next 2 months so we can go into July, appoint officers. We do need to keep the executive committee by bylaws. We can do this. There's not even a resolution. We have the power to create or abolish committees as necessary. The one thing is we need to keep executive committee, and any grant requests have to come through committee to go to the board. Everything else can go to direct to board. We just think it really helps with the engagement and understanding, especially as new members come in, to kind of be given all of the issues and be able to discuss.
In the past, we've had a board that was comprised of individuals that had a little more free time and were able to come to the committees and be engaged with their time a little bit more. Right now, we have a board that's got a lot more busyness during the day. It's much more challenging, so this is going to solve some of those issues. We will be looking ahead to try to make the timing work best. There's pros and cons to different timelines. If we put it later in the month, it means a lot more stuff can happen during the month that then informs that meeting. If we do it earlier in the month, it means we can have the conversation and then supplement it later. So there's pros and cons. I think from the staff side, they felt more comfortable having it a little bit later in the month, but we can sort of work that out as we discuss. The other one is a lot of these committees naturally can be winnowed into this. The one challenge is the Affordable Housing and Economic Development Committee meetings, especially with partners. They provide things that it's tough to make work within a work session. So over the next 2 months, we can talk a little bit about what it looks like to incorporate the benefits of the head committee, especially with the partners, retain that within this new structure.
So I'll bring up, this is a shift, and we discussed it in executive committee. So I'll just share kind of my first reflections as I was hearing it a little bit ago, which is that one of the open questions that I have is, sometimes we do need all of a committee session, to be able to discuss a presentation or something like that. And so one of my open questions is how are we managing the workload, of individual sessions, which I think can be managed by planning. We have a sense, on an annual basis of how the work goes, so I think it's manageable, but it is a question for me. One thing that it resolves is something that I think of as the leadership pipeline. We have a hard time finding enough chairs and co-chairs and everything for all of the committees that we have, so I think it takes some of the pressure off of, needing so many people in leadership positions. And another thing that I appreciate about the idea is that this brings us more in line with other service areas within the city. I can't think of another service area that has so many individual committees dedicated to essentially one department of the city. And so this brings us, in terms of how the board or commission is supporting the staff, this brings us more in line with the rest of the city. I think all of the city, which feels appropriate. So those were some of my first reactions as I was listening to the idea.
So my thought is you've got 4 independent committees, not counting the executive. Those committees meet at least an hour a month. How long are we thinking this work session is going to last?
The hope would be 2 hours, maybe slightly more.
And there, going kind of back to Jess's comment about workload, we see a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of discussion and information coming out of operations and capital improvements. Finance hadn't had a committee meeting for many months. A lot of those are relatively fast updates unless there's a presentation, ahead. If you're not, unless there's a partner meeting, and we do need some solution for that, which we'll be working out over the next couple of months. A lot of that comes up to updates as well. So we're trying to keep the best parts of those meetings that are really informative, and we get work done, while also managing the load of operations and capital improvements and making sure everyone's up to speed on the really important work that those are doing. So I think the agenda comes at kind of agenda management between looking at what our year looks like. Obviously there's going to be things that pop up and need to be addressed, but it feels like, I get what you mean. Are we replacing 8 hours of meeting with 2 hours?
Well, yeah, that's.
It doesn't effectively come out to that. Right. If you even look at operations, you're canceled next month and that kind of stuff. So there will be some heavy times. There will be other times where a lot of committees are kind of reporting out on updates, and there's only 1 or 2 resolutions that need some discussion.
Yeah, and then the other concern would be if an individual wasn't able to make the work session, they basically have no ability to check in throughout the month, but that might just be down to scheduling.
That's something that we can try to handle on a case-by-case basis. The challenge right now is we're seeing that effectively happen month after month after month because people can't attend finance or ops or capital improvements, so things are coming and the same thing effectively happens. And so the hope here is that it winnows down the amount of attendance you have to make, but then you get all of it. So overall, we see it as a net benefit. I can tell you, even having this conversation here, I think staff is pretty excited about the potential change here, just from a sort of a redundancy workload.
Just a thought on that. I don't want to belabor it, but I know that we are one of the groups that has to meet in person for whatever. Maybe there's an option to have a broadcast so that people that can't attend, they might not be able to participate in the conversation, but at least they could be
participate
listening.
Listen via Zoom.
Yeah, so they're getting the information even if they're not really an active participant.
And that's what we're hoping to work on within these next 2 months. Like, how do we make this work? We see it as a really viable solution to a lot of the challenges we're facing here.
Are there items other than grant requests, I think you said, that would have to go to executive committee?
The only function that needs to go through committee that the board approves is a grant request. Every other function can go direct to board. We've got a lot of statutory leeway to be flexible with these.
That's the bulk of the executive committee. The next committee meeting is Wednesday, June 7th at 11:30 a.m. That concludes our subcommittee reports. We got the new business. Do we have any new business at the table? Seeing none. Public comment. Does anybody from the public wish to comment? You have 4 minutes each. Seeing none. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. All those in favor of adjournment of today's DDA board meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.